Hello, I'm Stephan Bonnar, and welcome to the final round, joined, as usual, by Mr. Odds Matthew Holt here at the Palm Sportsbook and Casino, and a big weekend of fights, man. We got the UFC 216, but first, tonight, Bellator 184, is it?
Bellator 184, and we're back to our normal order. Bellator on Friday, UFC on Saturday. That was a little tricky with the last one. Just want to start off by saying, our deepest condolences, thoughts, and prayers to all those who've gone out, dealt with this tragedy this week here in Las Vegas. I'll tell you, Monday morning, I have never been more proud in my 15 years in this state to be a Las Vegan. 7:30 a.m., I stopped by to give blood on Monday morning. There was already a 5.5-hour wait to give blood. Las Vegas as a community, what an unbelievable job they did of rallying together here around this.
Totally unselfish behavior, people, man, pulled together for the greater good. So hearts go out to all the victims and the families, and wishing everyone a speedy recovery.
Let's look at starting at the top of this fight. This is a fight I've been waiting for a while. This is actually one of those sneaky, really good Bellator main events. Darian Caldwell, Eduardo Dantas for the 135-pound bantamweight Bellator title. And Eduardo Dantas, if you haven't seen him, this guy's for real defending his title. The only loss ever to Joe Warren by decision. He came back and avenged that loss.
And then some, after he kind of grew into a man.
That's right. I mean, Dantas was young. He kind of had that young guy body the first time he fought Warren. But he has really developed into the legit 135-pound champion. Darren Caldwell looked like a steamroller, destroyed Joe Warren, blasted through the division 8-0, ran into that sneaky guillotine choke by Joe Ty Manglo, who's on this card, and he avenged that loss. Yes. So they both have one loss in Bellator. Both avenged it. Now here we go for the title. This one's really close. I am favoring, and the odds say it's close. It's a pick-em fight.
Pretty much.
I like Darian Caldwell in here because neither one of these guys really bangs.
No.
I mean, they're both kind of scramble submission guys, and I think Caldwell has that perfect submission body, and I think while they're on the feet, Caldwell's actually going to be able to exploit that height and reach advantage, use his leg kicks, use his range, and he's probably the superior striker.
But that was the thing I was had into question. How's Dantas going to do when he doesn't have the reach advantage? Because what he does so well is use that long length and fight behind his jab. What if he can't fight behind his jab? That's a bad feeling when you're used to having that reach advantage, and it's not there. This one I just didn't want to touch. I wanted to stay away from because I feel like either guy could outpoint the other one. I wasn't too sure about either fighter.
I'm with you, but I did see Caldwell minus 105 yesterday. I couldn't resist anymore because basically if you said to me there was no vig and it's even money, and you said you got to make a pick, I still think I'd end up on Darian Caldwell here. I think he's a little bigger. I think he's a little tougher. And to your point, I think he's really going to disrupt Eduardo Dantas, who's used to being the bigger, longer guy in there and is not going to be here. So I think I'd end up at Caldwell anyway. And when you give me a little extra 115 one way, I'm only laying 05. I couldn't help it. I'm on Caldwell.
See, a fight I did feel a little stronger about was Daniel Straus versus Emanuel Sanchez. This, too, is pretty much a pick-em, and I just feel like Straus has fought the tougher competition, is a more dangerous guy, hits harder, and just has more tools and ways to win than Emanuel Sanchez, and that's why I like Straus in this one. Pretty much a pick-em. Each guy's minus 115 now.
Straus is the two things about this fight that are completely blowing my mind. Number one, I can't believe how much money people are betting on Emanuel Sanchez here, because in my eyes, I'm with you. Daniel Straus is the far superior featherweight here. And the other thing is Daniel Straus himself is kind of an enigma to me. I have watched him fight sometimes, like the second fight against Pitbull, where I said, this guy may never lose a fight at featherweight. And I watched him fight Weichel in when they fought, and I went, this guy might be the biggest, strongest featherweight I have ever seen at 145 pounds. And then he goes out and gets choked out by Pitbull in the next time out, and you're just like, it's
and he
hard
gets
to
caught.
figure.
He does. He gets caught. If you end up like he got caught in that guillotine, I think he got caught in a rear naked.
Yeah.
So he does get caught in things, and that's the one thing that worries me about this fight. But I just don't see Sanchez being able to get this to the ground.
I don't either. I think these guys are both grinders. And Daniel Straus is going to push him against the fence, use that clinch game, hit him with knees, elbows, dirty him up, take him to the ground. I think that Sanchez, who's a really tough kid, can probably stay in there versus Straus. But I'm with you. I think it's a lopsided decision, and Daniel Straus might be the best value on this card. This is a fight that opened 175 down to a pick'em.
Yeah, see, I saw it at minus 175. I'm like, I don't like those kind of bets. And I checked again today, minus 115 each guy, and I couldn't resist it.
Look, Emanuel Sanchez, 5-1 in Bellator with the only loss to Daniel Weichel, but via decision. 4 of his 6 fights via split decision.
Yes.
He doesn't look great in those fights. They're all super close.
He's not a finisher, and Straus is. Straus hurts you. So.
Yeah, I'm with you. I love Daniel Straus here. Probably my favorite pick of the card.
Pat Curran, minus 175 favorite over Teixeira. And he probably should win that fight. You laying any wood there?
I don't know. Pat Curran's another one of those guys that gives me a little trouble. Only fought
old?
Twice in 2.5 years. Yeah.
Yeah, he might.
He's only 30, but all of a sudden, this guy was on a roll. I mean, I think that's who Daniel Straus originally won the title from, right? The first time was Pat Curran. And you've seen this guy fight so long, you're like, how old's Curran now? 38, 30? You're like, oh, he's 30. Yeah. What the heck?
So he's not behind him?
I don't know. Maybe 30? It's a miles issue, like you've said in the past. But the one thing I don't like is his inactivity. I don't like guys that take 18 months between every fight. And here again for Pat Curran, he hasn't fought since last May. So we're 15, 16 months again since his last fight. He's the better fighter. On paper, Pat Curran's the better fighter. But what Pat Curran are we going to get? And there's not a lot to know about Teixeira. He fought on the regional scene so much. He obviously favors submission. He has more than twice as many submissions as knockouts, so we know he probably wants to go to the ground. He's 1-1 in Bellator. I don't know. I think if I was going to play it, I would have to lay it with Pat Curran, but I'm not eager to lay that price with a guy with that little, who fights that infrequently. I think I'm going to pass.
And last up, Joe Tamalgo versus Leonardo Higo, big favorite, minus 250. Any value there?
You know what? I wanted to bet Higo. And Higo, for those of you who don't know, because he hasn't been fighting in Bellator for very long, actually, his last fight was a 135-pound title fight against Eduardo Dantas. And he lost a split decision and gave Dantas all he wanted. It was actually a really competitive, fun fight for a guy who, coming into that fight, nobody really knew him, gave Dantas everything he wanted. Joe Taimanglo is one of those guys who I always thought, this guy's kind of a grinder. He's kind of a journeyman. He lost his first couple in Bellator, but he reeled off 4 straight wins, including choking out Darian Caldwell before his most recent, where Caldwell avenged that loss. So I wonder if that gap. So he comes into Bellator, he's kind of one-dimensional, has the look, but really can't fight up to the look. Loses a couple, and then wins 4 in a row. Is this a young guy who got better and then just ran into a guy really good in Caldwell and split with him? Or did he just get freaky lucky once and snap a guillotine on Caldwell here? Because at 2-1, if he did improve enough in those 4, maybe there's some value there. I did already bet the under in this fight at plus 145, under 2.5 rounds. Both of these guys bang. They're both finishers. And Joe is a great submission artist. If he gets that big guillotine on you and squeezes those biceps, he could put anybody out. And we saw it with Darian Caldwell. And he goes a finisher, too. I think he has 10 or 11 submission wins out of 17 wins. This is a kid that gets the job done there, too. So I bet the under. I thought there was some value there at plus money, but I'm not 100% sure. I won't take a shot on Smokin' Joe at plus 200, plus 220.
Well, there you go. Bellator tonight. And like I said, I like Straus, my biggest bet on this card. Matt really likes Caldwell.
I like Straus and Caldwell, yeah.
Cool, and the under on the Tamalgo-Higo fight. But the big card, the UFC pay-per-view tomorrow night, T-Mobile Arena, UFC 216. And the big news was Kevin Lee, 19 pounds over yesterday. This morning, a bunch of texts rolled in that Kevin didn't make it. And I'm like, oh, no. like as of last night, Dewey told me he was still 11 over. So, and they got to make weight by 11 this morning. I thought there was no way. I was about to lay some heavy wood on Ferguson, but then I get a text saying, boom, 154.5. Kevin Lee made the weight, but after that kind of cut and facing a guy who stays as busy as Tony Ferguson and already being a 2-1 dog, I think Tony Ferguson's the smart bet.
And what we saw, I think you're right at this point, and he missed it the first time this morning. He missed weight at the weigh and came back an hour later, dropped the pound and a half.
11, yeah.
That's right. So he just snuck in there after missing weight the first attempt. All week what we saw is a lot of $50, $100 bets coming in on Kevin Lee, and I started to think to myself, it could be rocking in T-Mobile this Saturday after the tragedy. And Kevin Lee lives here, trains here. He's definitely the fan favorite here. You know, if he came into this fight with some momentum, I could see the crowd rallying behind him. But then we saw the weight cut, and I saw the interviews all week
the
where
psychological advantage goes to where's the Kevin Lee we saw last time that
against
was in
Michael
Chiesa's
Chiesa.
face, and have we seen his whole career? All of a sudden, Kevin Lee's this soft-spoken gentleman who doesn't stand up to Tony Ferguson, and they, I think it was a UFC summit or something like that. Dewey told me a story about how Tony got right in Kevin's face, and Kevin didn't do anything, that's not like Kevin Lee. So I say, stylistically, an advantage goes to Tony Ferguson. I think a psychological advantage goes to him as well.
I watched the interview on Fox Sports 1, Daniel Cormier and our friend Kenny Florian interviewing Tony and Kevin both on split screens, and it was a constant attack from Tony Ferguson. You're a chump. You're a nobody. I remember when we both had the same high school wrestling coach. I didn't know who you are, Kevin. You were no one. I was a star. You only took this fucking fight because no one else would. You know, I'm going to just school you. You're a chump. You have no shot. And Kevin's normally so flamboyant and into it and excited, and he was just like, I'm not going to listen to that.
Yeah, I got no response.
And that's just not. He seemed perturbed. He seemed like he was losing the verbal war this week. Not something that we're used to from Kevin Lee when he's at his best. I'm a little nervous. A tough weight cut, 19 pounds in a night. He's losing the verbal warfare.
And stylistically, a guy who throws as many punches as Tony Ferguson. Because Kevin Lee gets hit a lot in his fights.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking the more punches that Tony Ferguson throws, the more he's going to land. And I don't like that as well. I'm a Kevin Lee fan. So, yeah, Tony Ferguson probably the safe bet in this one.
And look, we've seen Kevin's fights lately all kind of go the same. Francisco Trinaldo had Kevin in big trouble in round one of their fight because Kevin walked into some power punches. Yep. He has a tendency to do that because he's so hyped up, so aggressive, he tends to walk into big shots. Chiesa hit him.
Yes, see,
everyone hits him early, and he was able to take Trinaldo down. He was able to take Chiesa down and get their backs. Can you take down one of the best scramblers in the history of the MMA? I mean, when you look at the last 5 wins for Tony Ferguson, they include a submission over Lando Venata, a second-round submission over Edson Barbosa, a submission over Gleison Tebow, submission over Abel Trujillo. This is a guy who himself might be the best submission artist or the best scrambler in all.
6'1" at that weight class, who wraps up those head and arm chokes like nobody else in that division. Yep. And this line has moved a lot. Tony Ferguson, I think, was a minus 210, and when it opened, it's up to minus 280 right now. So.
Minus 210 this morning, not just when it opened. Hasn't been a gradual increase all week. Like this morning, everybody heard about Kevin Lee's weight cut, how bad he missed weight, saw some of the interviews, how bad Tony's been abusing him in the interviews, and that line went from minus 210 all the way to minus 280, and not getting smaller, folks. If you want to bet on Tony Ferguson, the time is now because this line is not going down.
The co-main event, Mighty Mouse Johnson looks to set that record against Ray Borg, and not much to talk about here. He's a minus 1,400 who really wants to lay $1,400 to lay 100.
One of the interesting things about this fight, though, is the last 3 big fights that we've seen where a fighter pulled out, but then got the fight rescheduled at the next pay-per-view or so. Same thing here. They were supposed to fight in September. the odds have drastically gone against the fighter who withdrew. Think of Amanda Nunes, closed a minus 130 favorite, pulls out, they fight underdog. 6 weeks later, it's Shevchenko minus 135 because there's this public disdain or dislike for the fighter who withdrew the first time. In this case, we have Mighty Mouse going from minus 1,000 up to minus 1,400 strictly because people don't like Ray Borg because he pulled out last time. Look, I don't think Ray Borg's chances have improved or decreased in the month since they were supposed to fight. I didn't think he had a great chance before. I don't think he had a great chance now. But now at plus 800 or plus 1,000, I looked today in a $20 parlay. One of my friends put this in, a $20 parlay between Kevin Lee and Ray Borg, paid $490 on $20. They're such big underdogs. Now, after Kevin's weight cut, I'm not sure I'd want any part of that. But at 25 years old, who's to say Ray Borg hasn't gotten a lot better over the last 18 to 24 months? I don't think he has a great shot here, but he might have a better shot than the odds say. The odds basically say Mighty Mouse Johnson wins. If they fight 100 times, he wins 97. I'm not sure that Ray Borg doesn't win 7 or 8 of those and Mighty Mouse win 91 or 92. I'm not eager to bet Ray Borg here, but I'm certainly not going to lay 1,400.
Me neither. Derrick Lewis first, Fabricio Werdum, the heavyweight fight. Werdum minus 225 favorite in this fight, and I think he's going to win this fight, but I just don't like betting against guys who are dangerous like that. And Fabricio's been one-punch KO'd before. Stipe Miocic did it. Junior Dos Santos did it, and it could happen. So I'm staying away from that one.
This is a fight to me where I almost bet both guys for information reasons, and then I decided to pass. First of all, you saw Fabricio. I wanted to bet Derrick Lewis anyway. Fabricio Werdum's 40. He's almost 41 years old. He's lost 2 of his last 3 fights. It's hard to maintain that level at his age. To your point, he got knocked out in the first round against Miocic. There's a reason the UFC hasn't rushed back for a rematch because his heavyweight reign would be unsustainable at his age. But on top of that, he got into that media lunch with Tony Ferguson where he started throwing out those gay slurs at Tony Ferguson, which you can't do in 2017, which has been every press conference this week. People ask him, are you homophobic? Do you hate gays? Are you anti-Semitic? And he's having to answer and deal with all these horrible issues that he never wanted to deal with on a fight week. You just want to focus on the fight. And then on the other side of it, Derrick Lewis, and just when I'm ready to bet Lewis, he comes out and says, you know what? I'm not really focused this week. I don't like cutting weight, man. I want to be able to eat.
I'm going to cut weight.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
They're like, well, what's your game plan? I'm not really focused. I'm not really focused.
Yeah,
What's going on?
I'm not feeling it. I'm not up for the fight.
Feeling it.
Yeah. He's not up for the fight.
So that certainly did not make me want to rush to the window to bet a guy in the biggest fight of his career against the former UFC heavyweight champion. People ask you your game plan, you say you're not really into it? I mean...
So, yeah, if you're looking for a 2-to-1 underdog to bet, my big bet, the kind of bets I love, and the one I laid somewhat on, Evan Dunham against Beneil Dariush. Evan Dunham has fought the tougher guys, and he is, I think, the kind of style that'll give Dariush trouble. I've talked to guys who've trained with Evan Dunham here, and they said he looks really good. His hands, his striking looks sharper than ever, and I think he could kind of grind out and get Beneil Dariush to the ground and kind of wear him out. And Dariush isn't too dangerous of a guy unless he has a couple stoppages. But overall, I think if this fight was a pick'em, I'd like Evan Dunham, 2-to-1 underdog. That's why I'm going with him in this fight.
I left this one alone. So Evan, I think they both fought equal levels of competition here because they both fought some really tough guys, right?
They both lost to Barbosa. Let's see.
Dariush beat Michael Johnson. He knocked out James Vick in his only loss with 1 punch.
And he got knocked out by Ramsey Nijem.
Yeah.
Barbosa knocked him out. And Evan, he's won his last 4, though. This is like a new Evan Dunham. He beat Joe Lauzon, Pearson, Barbosa. Oh, no, he lost to Barbosa. But he's been there with Cerrone, RDA, Gleason Tebow, TJ Graham.
He's fought a blown-up 145er in his last fight. But
against Pearson?
No, it was the kid that came over from World Series of Fighting, the one that we hit at plus 220. Shoot, I forget his name now. But he fought a blown-up 45er in his last fight. Evan Dunham took a step back in class. First of all, he took some time off. Then he took a step down in class and won 4 straight fights. Now he's taking that step back up in class. What's going to happen? I do agree, though, that Beneil Dariush is kind of a mystery. You could make a case that he really lost to Michael Johnson. He got a lucky decision. But then he blasted out James Vick, which was kind of crazy because Vick's awesome. I just couldn't figure this one out. And I do feel like at 36 and with all the injuries he had, Evan Dunham's either right at the top of his mountain or on the downslide, certainly not still climbing up. And Dariush at 28, 29 years old, if he's ever going to make that run, the time is now.
That's a good point. But if Dunham had the same mindset as Derrick Lewis, I wouldn't take it. But talking to people who have trained with him for this camp, he is focused and he looks better than he's ever looked. And
when he's focused, he's a handful at 55. Yeah, tall, long, rangy, hard to deal with on the ground, strong.
Plus 200, I thought there was some value there.
Yeah. He needs to probably get it to the ground, to your point. If he gets it to the ground, he can certainly grind him out. I think standing up, Dariush is the power puncher here.
So that's my underdog pick of the day. There's how do you say his name? Tom Duquesnoy versus Cody Stamann. Duquesnoy minus 155 favorite. And his last fight, though, with Patrick Williams, he showed
It's Duquesnoy.
Duquesnoy.
Yeah. Super hard to pronounce. He's a French guy.
So his
Rick will
last,
know, right?
He's got a lot of
French Canadian, right? Right, Rick? Yeah.
There's a lot of hype behind this kid, but his last fight versus Patrick Williams, he kind of got beat up a little that first round, and Patrick Williams completely gassed out, and he was able to get the win. So I don't feel too good about laying money on a guy that hasn't faced really high-level competition.
I have 4 bets on the undercard, and he was one of my bets. And to your point, he is young. He reminds me kind of Kevin when Kevin came up against Ally Quinta. A little bit raw, a little bit too eager, runs into a few too many punches, but you could tell the skill set's there. You could tell the desire's there. Total gym rat. This kid looks the part, super aggressive, really strong, they're big-time power striker, both with hands and feet. And on the other side of it, he's fighting a guy in Cody Stamann who's a local regional grinder. Really good wrestler. Used that wrestling to win fights on the regional circuit at MMA, ground out a decision win in the UFC. But he doesn't have big power. He's not a great submission guy.
Do you think that's the kind of style that could give Duquesnoy?
I do. Here's what we need to do. Tom needs to finish this fight, or at least dominate the first 2 rounds, because I have a feeling he's going to fade. Yeah, and if this one goes to the ground, there could certainly be some trouble. But I just felt like he has so many ways to win. He's great on submissions. He has the huge power edge in this fight. He's bigger, stronger. You'll see him when they look standing together. One guy looks like a guy training in MMA, taking advantage of what you can make weight in a weight class. They're going to look a weight class apart. So I went ahead and laid what I thought was actually a pretty fair price at $1.50.
Nice. Another underdog, Bobby Green versus Lando Venata. Bobby Green hasn't looked too good. I've seen him where I'm like, this guy has potential. He could be something.
That's one of my underdogs.
But I liked his last fight. He lost a fight that I thought he could have won. But he's fighting Lando Venata, who really hasn't proven himself, who's fought mainly on the regional scene. And he looked good against Tony Ferguson for a round.
For a minute.
And then he got choked out.
For a minute.
So I thought Bobby Green was another good underdog to play.
I played Bobby Green at plus 200, and I'm with you. Look, I have been burned by betting Bobby Green as a big underdog in the past. But the difference is Bobby Green's level of competition, Dustin Poirier, Rashid Magomedov, he has fought like the top 10 guys in the world at lightweight and given them good fights.
He beat Josh Thompson. He looked awesome in that fight.
This is a guy that gives you hope when you watch him that, wow, this kid really gets it. And then he goes out and he's been known to lay an egg. But look, he took some time off. He came back. He fought Rashid Magomedov to a split decision in a really close fight. Was close with Poirier. I like the way he's fighting. He seems to have that fire back. He's still only 31 years old. And I'm with you. I am completely anti-Lando Venata, who came in off the regional circuit like 8-0, got the fight with Tony Ferguson because of a pullout.
Yes.
So he comes in last minute. Tony's all upset because he thinks he has a big fight. Suddenly he's fighting this guy no one's ever heard of. And Venata lands one head kick in the first round that kind of gets Tony dizzy and allows Venata to land some other strikes. But 30 seconds later, he's completely gassed, and Tony chokes him out easy in the second round. But it wasn't just that fight. It was the next fight. I'm trying to remember.
Well, he had a lot of hype against Lando Venata against John Makdessi. He hit a spin kick that was really flashy.
Wasn't John Makdessi tailor-made for Lando Venata?
Yeah. And people really got on the Venata horse after that. And
then he lost to David Tamor.
Yeah, and look, he pretty much kickboxed with him. And
if Bobby Green fought Tamor, who's the favorite?
Tamor.
I mean, aren't they close? If Tamor fights Bobby Green, isn't that a line going to be close?
Yeah, probably right. But
and Tamor whipped.
Tamor has like a bunch of kickboxing titles, so you don't want to have a kickboxing match with him. And that's exactly what Lando Venata did. Had a kickboxing match with him, and he lost a unanimous decision. So yeah, Bobby Green, not a bad underdog. Has fought the better competition, and I think he does. He has the stand-up skills to kind of outpoint Lando Venata and win a decision.
Yeah, he's athletic enough to hang in there. And at 2-1, I think there's some value, and I took a shot with him.
I think you just talked me into that. Any other dogs on this card? Are any other fights on this card you really like?
I got 2 more bets I made. The first one, which is one of my favorite bets on this card, Mark Godbeer, Walt Harris, under the posted total of 1.5. I had to lay minus 120. You can probably, I saw it's 125, 130 some places. I think you probably are not surprised that I'm betting a heavyweight fight under, but look, these guys are true heavyweight, one-punch KO guys. Walt Harris, 10 wins, 10 knockouts. Mark Goodbeer, 11 of 12 wins, 93% by finish. 10 of 12 by knockout, 1 submission in there as well. These guys both finish. Goodbeer, 3 losses, 2 of them by knockout. Walt Harris, 2 of 5 losses by knockout. These are guys who knock people out, period, quickly, and tend to get knocked out when they lose fights. I don't know if you've ever seen Walt Harris fight. For you fans who haven't, he's a little rounder than some heavyweights you might seen. He doesn't want to go the distance. He will gas. They want to get this one done quick. This is going to end up being, the top fight on the prelims for a reason. This will get the fans going. Yeah. It's a great fan-friendly fight. They're not going 2 full rounds. Somebody's going to sleep before the end of the first round. Bet the under, minus 120.
Other than that, you got a big favorite, Will Brooks against Nik Lentz.
That got canceled.
Oh.
I actually had made a big bet. I made a big bet on Will Brooks. I think Lentz withdrew this morning. And then a couple of my friends in the industry bet him at minus 300, and that line went as high as minus 360. Sorry about the flashing lights in here, folks watching us on the podcast now, but I think they had a faulty fire alarm, or they're testing it, and the lights are flashing everywhere. And I'm not 100% sure why, but the building is not on fire. And yes, Stephan, myself, Rick, Drew, Kev, we're all okay. Everything's cool in here. One other fight on this card I did take a look at was Marco Beltran, opening card of the night, UFC Fight Pass. Against the kid Matt Snell. Matt Snell was a kid who was okay on the regional circuit. He's only 9-4 overall. Got 2 shots in UFC, got knocked out in the first round in both of them. Did not look competitive. We're not talking fluky. He got blasted in both fights. Marco Beltran's a guy who's been around in the UFC. 3-2, fought on the Mexico season of Tough. Been in a few fights. You know, he is on a 2-fight losing streak, but this is a guy who's been in there, a lot tougher dude. I went ahead and laid, and I heard Marco Beltran from some guys who trained with him who said he really looked good, and he was excited to be on a pay-per-view card and get this opportunity, and that he had a great camp. I thought he should have been the small favorite anyway. When I originally made my numbers, I made him minus 125. It came out 145 Snell. I went ahead and took a shot with Marco Beltran. I think he's really live here.
So you think Schnell's the favorite because he's kind of more popular?
Yeah, he has the look, right? He looks like Alan Joe Bain. He's got that body, and but he got blasted in both his UFC fights. I mean, they were non-competitive, knocked out in the first round in both.
Wow, and he's a favorite. I thought about Talislete, Brad Tavares.
It's a good fight.
Yeah, I like Tavares a lot. He's a tough guy, man. He's been the distance with Yoel Romero. He's fought really high-level competition, but so has Terrace Leites. And this new and improved Terrace Leites makes me a little hesitant to bet Tavares. If I'm going to bet anyone, I think it's Brad.
When I looked at the line on the sheet, which is the opener, minus 150, I was like, you know what? I think I might take a shot with Brad Tavares. By the time I opened my phone and went to bet it, it was Tavares minus 170. And the problem with betting Brad is he really doesn't have any knockout power. I think his last 6 wins are by decision or something. I mean, he's good on the feet. He has good striking, but he doesn't put people to sleep striking.
Really
and then
hard
he's susceptible
low
on the ground, and he's going against the great submission
yeah.
guy in Leites. But look, in his last 5 fights, Brad Tavares only lost now looks really good considering it was Robert Whittaker.
Yeah, Robert Whittaker, and I think his only loss before that was Yoel Romero.
Yeah,
so probably the top couple guys in the division. So.
And Leites has to slow down at some point. 37 or 38 now?
Yeah,
he's starting to get to that.
Miles on
yes.
So a lot of good value to be found on this card. A couple great underdogs. And, yeah, I think you talked me into betting Bobby Green. And I might also go with the under in the heavyweight fight, Godbear versus Harris. Other than that, I really like Dunham at a 2-1 dog. And, I think the smart money's with Tony Ferguson. But that line's probably only going to keep moving, so bet him now.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that we lost the Will Brooks fight. Well, me and a couple people had bet that fight fairly heavy, and were part of the reason that line moved from minus 300 to minus 350. And then, of course, it gets pulled from the card today because that fight was tailor-made for Will Brooks to look good.
Yeah. Really was trying to get Will a win because he's 0-2
against a blown-up 45er who's going to out-wrestle, and Will's a better athlete, stronger, faster.
Exactly.
It was tailor-made to get Will a win.
This guy's 0-2. Let's get him a win.
Yeah.
So there you go. Some value to be found here. UFC 216 tomorrow from the T-Mobile Arena. Hope you guys have some good luck with your picks. For Matthew Holt, I'm Stephan Bonnar saying see you next week on the final round.